There seems to be a real focus on work experience now at the moment. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily all that newer focus, but there's definitely a heightened kind of focus on this at the moment. So, careers guidance itself in schools and colleges has been building steadily over the last 10 years since the onset of the Gatsby benchmark. So, we are seeing real breadth in careers provision against those Gatsby benchmarks, supported by careers hubs all up and down the country. This focus on experiences of the workplace that is coming through is a recognition, I think, that the work experience standard model of, you go and do a week in year 10
Mm.
is fundamentally broken. It hasn't really been updated in 40 years. It has resulted in a huge amount of pressure being put on individual school staff who are often careers leaders as additional roles and responsibilities within their already busy teaching schedules. And what this means is that it's forcing a lot of young people to either miss out, source their own placements, which is great if your mum works at Goldman
Yeah.
Sachs, but not so great if you don't have access to that kind of social capital. So it's largely unequal, and I think that has been recognised, and I think that those in the system who work in the system who've known this for a long time, who would have loved to put on a really, really good and impactful work experience program, have needed this focus and this sort of fixed glare on it to actually sort of put some extra things in place around it. So we've had an update to the Gatsby benchmarks, much clearer sense of what meaningful engagement looks like, and that's really great because what that does is it tells employers, but it also tells those careers leaders and those school leaders that this is real, but this is based on national best practice. This hasn't just come out of the blue. This is based on 10 years worth of working against these benchmarks. Schools have improved on their careers provision across the country, but there is still so much more to do. And one of the things that we're trying to achieve with modern work experience is that more equitable and more impactful approach. So it's great to have this focus. We're trying to use this sort of policy focus
Mm.
to sort of really be the catalyst for this systemic change that we're looking to see to build on the great work that's been done to this point.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the statutory guidance and how that's informed the modern work experience model?
Yeah, absolutely. So the statutory guidance that has been updated in May of this year, we're due to come into play from September this year. It does two things really, really effectively. So it does more than this, but two that we're really focused on here. One is it enshrines the updated Gatsby benchmarks. So as I say, those benchmarks have been in place now for 10 years. They've done a
Mm.
huge amount to improve the breadth of provision. But I think what there is a recognition of is we need to go further and we need to improve the depth of provision, the impact, the quality of experiences. So it does that through its updated benchmark 6. I would encourage all employers, and I would encourage certainly the careers leaders in schools to be right across it, but I'd encourage employers to go and look at this guidance and say, if I'm going to be stepping into this space, how do I do it really effectively? Well, that is going to be the blueprint and the framework to start from. That's the best jumping off point, really. And then there's services like ours that we deliver, the Central London Careers Hub, and those careers hubs exist in every area of the country, who are on hand as a service, as a government funded service, to support those employers to connect with education on the basis of that quality. So that's the first thing it does. The second is it takes the government's manifesto commitment of delivering 2 weeks worth of work experience. Now, when we first saw that, and I think many careers
Mm.
leaders and teachers up and down the country would have thought 2 weeks of work experience, because we were stuck maybe in the old model, in this idea of what 2 weeks in year 10, sort of how is that going to work? The key word in that is worth. What we want to see is a progressive program of multiple and varied experiences that build on one another. We want to see experiences that are underpinned by shared learning outcomes between not just the employer and the school, but with the learner as well. We want experiences of the workplace to become more relevant as a young person's interests develop, as their sort of goals and their ambitions come clearer into clearer focus. We want to see a provision that matches that, um, built on shared objectives, as I say, but also essential skills and transferable skills. All of this is achievable, it's hard. It's not easy. But actually, by taking this sort of one size fits all approach of, everyone goes and does a week, if you can find yourself a placement in year 10, and saying, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to really deliver on what the CEC, the Careers and Enterprise Company, have been pushing to deliver over the last 5 or so years, is to move careers education and experience of the workplace as a central pillar of that from the margins of school life into the mainstream. So that means better curriculum alignment. You'll know this through the work that you do on the Teacher Encounters program. It's so essential that we speak with one voice around careers. Bringing curriculum-based subject teachers into that conversation is really, really essential. If it's all left down to the careers leader, that's going to be really, really hard to achieve. It needs to. We are moving towards a decentralized model of careers. So the statutory guidance is really important for us because it adds fresh impetus to that conversation. So the fact that this is now in there as the ambition, it's the stated ambition of government, essentially tells school leaders this is important and we need to be focused on this. It's not an added extra. It's something that, we're working towards. Now, we'll do our piece as a careers hub network, engaging with industry, engaging with businesses to support and supplement that learning. But what we really want to see is a move away from the ad hoc reactive nature of careers, driven, by the way, by great people who maybe just don't have that time and resource yet, towards a much more strategically developed, underpinned by best practice that we've seen up and down the country, which, I would take it to the careers impact system, and I would look at that. That's been developed by the CEC and the maturity model that's based on. That is as good a framework and a blueprint for a progression of a careers provision as you're likely to see. Now, employers don't necessarily need to see that, but it's good for employers to know that they're actually contributing to something which is bigger than just the reactive event that they're delivering that day, that it's part of a progressive program of experiences that are going, and they're playing their part in it, that are going to set these young people up for the best possible next step.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the idea of, with this new model, starting the conversation around careers earlier and stopping this reactive work experience, like you say, all condensed in to year 10 and year 12, and that being the end of it. And I think embedding those core skills much earlier on will allow students to, well, there'll be a lot less students that are neat by the end of it, as they're embedding skills and feeling more confident in that as well. What do you consider as some of the benefits of using a model that engages Key Stage 3?
Yeah, so NEET reduction is definitely a part of this. We've got 1 in 8 young people in this country beyond secondary school, not in education, employment, or training, and that is a real crisis. I have to say that is really, really depressing, and that's not that this is no silver bullet, right? But you cannot tell me that a really high quality program of formative experiences early on to shape and establish a sense of young people, or their own sense of their own place in the world as that develops. Now, again, we are talking about something that's quite specific here. That is an incredibly complex thing. Schools have incredibly complex jobs to do. Careers is going to be a part of that. And we're not trying to sort of overplay the hand on this. But if you don't get that bit right, then you cannot be surprised when young people are getting into year 10 or year 12, and then you're telling them to go and source their own placement, and they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to get started. We need to look at this as a scaffolded kind of model, same sort of pedagogy that teachers will be trained on and used to using, that we need time for reflection and sort of deepening of learning after experiences that doesn't exist everywhere. We need shared learning objectives, as I mentioned. All of this is aligned with standard teaching practice. So it's about bringing, as I say, from the margins into the mainstream. But to talk to your point more specifically, starting early is really important. And I think it's important because when we look at even as basic as this, right? So we do something called the Future Skills Questionnaire, as you know, every year. We've got, in Central London alone, we've had around 10,000 responses so far this academic year. And this tells us a real range of things. It gives us an overall sense of the career readiness of those young people completing. It gives us a sense of how they're viewing their own levels of essential skills, the teamwork, leadership, communication, these kind of things. It also gives us some quite targeted data. So it tells us a sort of a level of optimism. So one of the questions within it is, how optimistic do you feel about your next steps, and so on. And that's capping out at about 2/3, which sounds like, all right, 2/3, what does that mean? Well, that means in central London alone, if that's a representative sample, which the sample size is decent, you're talking about 50,000 young people who are just not optimistic at all about the next steps. And actually, we do see a correlation between those schools and colleges that have the highest level of provision, as defined by the Gatsby benchmarks, as defined by the Careers Impact System, those that repeatedly score quite highly when self-assessing against those frameworks, we see a higher level of optimism in their student populations. And I think that's really arresting, and I think it's a really good case to make, and we are making that case. And that needs to start early. That can't be something you throw in at the end after it, during a period, by the way, when their GCSE options have already been chosen. They're already starting to think about what they might do at post-16, many of them. So there's that element of it. But the other is, and we talk to businesses about this all the time, is it's so within your interest to play the long game here, right? Because by engaging with Key Stage 3, that sort of 11 to 14-year-olds, right, we see more fluctuation through that questionnaire on sector interests during those years than we do in the years that follow, right? And I'm not saying that every single young person by the age of 14 knows what they want to do. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that they're more likely to be set on a path, and typically that will be defined by subjects and interests in those areas. So if you can get aligned to that subject interest, and we've got loads of ways that you can do that through careers hubs. If you can get yourself aligned with that subject interest and that skill area potentially, then actually you can start to shape those career goals, those sectoral interests as they move through. So when they're coming to select their options, they're not just doing it, and it's not bad advice to say, do what you like and do what you want to do, but it's good for them to know. It will give them confidence, especially in those subject areas that are traditionally harder to see where that career path might lead them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's certainly within the interest of businesses to start earlier and play the longer game. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're a small business and you're thinking, well, I just want to get involved with my local school, I want to invest in my community, but I don't have the resource, I don't have the means to do events every year for year 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, right? Well, you don't need to, right? But if you did one thing a year, knowing that it's part of an actual structured progressive program where other businesses are going to come in and add other layers where they're probably going to have the greatest level of impact, but you're a really key part of that formative period, then actually those students will remember you, that you will be established as a player in their mind. And the other slight tangent on a tangent here, but the other thing that I would say is when you've engaged early, then when we get to that Key Stage 4 point, a re-engagement at that point and a deepening of the learning for staff, for internal sort of staff retention, morale, part of development programs internally, and so on. That experience of going out and volunteering and going out into schools, talking about your job and why it's great for you to be working in this sector and so on. We work with businesses all the time that say that they place the volunteering aspect of getting out into schools and colleges within their kind of staff development strands internally, at least in part. It's often in social value, and it's often in sort of talent pipeline recruitment and stuff. But actually that staff development piece can be really powerful. And doing that with younger kids who are just a bit more kind of, and I'm being really generalist here, but who are just a bit more maybe open to different pathways and different things there, because they won't have had those formative experiences yet. I think that's really powerful. So engaging early is definitely something through the modern work experience that the Careers and Enterprise Company have developed, that model of Equalex, which is about opening up opportunities to everybody, is about making sure that sort of learner journeys are personalized as far as possible, that they are exposed to a differentiated and diverse group of organizations and sectors, and are really allowed the space to then learn from that, build on the learning that they've done, and then make the most informed decision possible. And I think that's really the crux of this: is can we get them to those big transition points of post 16, post 18, potentially even earlier when they're choosing those options, and can we get them there at the most informed stage possible? That's the key.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the Equalex Employer Charter?
So the Equalex Employer Charter is the Central London Careers Hub's response to all of this. So what we have done over the last few years has been growth more than anything else. That is the word I would use. So we've gone from working with maybe a couple of hundred employers a year to over 800 employers now, working, doing something with us in some way, with this real focus on not just the number of workplace experiences, but the quality and the depth of impact that those experiences should carry. We wanted to put something in place that would simplify our service for organizations of all sizes. And I think that's another element is we've grown, but we've grown predominantly with large business, and we want to be getting out to small businesses who are really invested in part of their local communities and saying there's a place for you in this, and you've got a voice that is really essential to this development. So we wanted to create something that appealed across that business landscape. And obviously in central London, it's a vast business landscape. So there's huge opportunity here, but we want to sort of tap into that a little bit more. And sorry for the slight tangent on small business here, but actually when you look at the model of work experience as we've seen it over the last few decades, it's pretty much shut small businesses out of that market. It's very rare that they've been able to do in any kind of structured way. I mean, it's fine if it's your kid, but it's very rare that they've been able to put on real solid work experience programs whilst running their small business, given the sort of financial difficulties that we've gone through as a country over the last couple of decades. But anyway, back to the charter. So the charter itself is it's something any employer in the central London area can sign up to. It gives access to our network of schools and colleges to be able to deliver this kind of activity work, this kind of experience to young people. That could be done in school, that can be done in the workplace. What we will do, and our team, it was work with those chartered employers to ensure that whatever it is that their goals are in this, that they've got access to our service to support them to do that. So they can be sure that it's being developed from a position of best practice, sort of national research informed practice. So that there's a real quality to the engagement that they're able to put on. So it's as good a jumping off point as there would be for somebody who's for a business of any size that has just wanted to do this stuff for a while but not done it before. So what do employers need to do? So there is a commitment level to this. But it's a low bar, I would say. So the first is that there is a commitment to the principles of Equalex, that principle of equity, the principle of continuous improvement through quality, and the commitment to delivering experiences. So all of those things are enshrined in this. All we ask for employers signing up to the charter, and obviously everything we do as a careers hub is completely funded, so it's completely free. But all we ask for to have access to that support is the commitment to deliver at least one day's worth of activity over the course of the year. In return, as well as access to my team, who will work directly with employers to shape what their offer is. They'll have access to CPD events for their staff, networking events, at least 3 or 4 of those a year where we bring all of our chartered employers together. They have access to they're given a quality mark of that evidences and allows them to demonstrate their commitment to these values and the fact that they are a trusted employer in this space, that we're working with them. They are a partner of the Central London Careers Hub. That gets displayed in an online register. So all of our careers leaders in all schools and colleges across the region can go onto there and say, I am absolutely sure that this organisation, they are committed to the principles of what modern work experience is all about. And that's just a great thing. So there's lots more we can talk about with the charter, and there'll be more coming through. I would encourage any employer to go to the Central London Careers Hub website, where all of that information is going to be, and they can reach out to us at any time for an informal conversation about how to get started in this space and potentially become a chartered employer on the Equalex Employers Charter.
Thank you.